Hello, Nebraska, and welcome to this week's edition of the Retirement Compass, the show that's dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have Tim Kulhanek. He is the co-founder and a financial advisor at Stonebridge Wealth Systems, based right here in Nebraska, and Jeremy Gove, who is a partner as well as a financial advisor at Stonebridge Wealth Systems as well. Tim, Jeremy, so good to be back with you. How are you both doing this week?
Doing great, thank you.
Good.
Very good, thank you.
Well, I know you are super busy meeting with lots of different folks who've been coming in from your different live events, from your radio show, from the television show as well. We've got another jam-packed show that you put together for all of you at home today. The title of today's show is To Contribute or Not to Contribute, the Problem with Qualified Plans. So what are we talking about? Well, we're going to unpack all of this for you, but the inspiration for today's show was birthed out of an article that came out last year in Investment News. It said, stop contributing to your IRAs and 401ks. That was the title of the article, which could cause people to stop and click, right? Saying,
for sure.
What? Why should I stop contributing? It went on to say that the first sentence of the article, stop contributing to your IRAs and 401ks, that has to be a typographical error. After all, traditional retirement planning has always preached maximizing contributions to tax-deferred individual retirement accounts and 401ks to build your retirement savings. The article went on to say, though, that this decades-old strategy is no longer working for folks, and it's time, therefore, for people to reduce their IRA balances, not increase them. Very interesting. So my first question for you guys today, can you explain why someone might suggest that folks should just stop contributing to their IRAs and 401ks? Why would someone even suggest that?
Well, I think it's important, Kristen, to consider, a lot of articles that are written, they're written for a very broad audience. And so it's really important to take into consideration your specific situation before you start making decisions about what your plans are, what your retirement plans are, and how that looks. And so one of the things I thought would be good at the start of this conversation is to define what is a qualified plan.
Yes, let's do it.
So we talk about a lot of different semantics, and there's a lot of different things in our financial services world. And so let's define what a qualified plan is. So a qualified plan is a plan that meets the requirements of Section 401A of the tax code. And if you think of a traditional 401k, that's what a 401, or that's a plan that meets that. So
right, that's where it got its name from, was the tax code.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
So 401k, yeah. So what's happening is you're contributing money to that plan pre-tax.
Right.
So you're generally making those deductions, or your employer's making those deductions from your paycheck. Then they make the contribution to your 401k, and that reduces your taxable income
for that
from that
year.
standpoint. For that year, yes. And so there are also other types of employer-sponsored plans now, like the Roth 401k. And we'll talk a little bit more of that in the future on the show, but that's an after-tax contribution. And so there's a lot of different qualified plans. So there's traditional IRAs would end up being a qualified plan, or people consider that a qualified plan. That would include SEP IRAs and simple IRAs.
For self-employed individuals,
For
right?
self-employed individuals, yep. And then we talked already about the 401k as a retirement plan, but there's also 403bs, there's also TSPs, and there's a few other types of plans like that.
Right, so different workplace retirement plans.
Right.
You know, I always think, Jeremy, when I hear qualified plans, the way I like to remember it is that means you're qualified to pay tax on that money. It's synonymous with a tax-deferred account. You know, to your point, there's so many acronyms, there's so many labels out there, and it can get really confusing, but a qualified plan means you're qualified to pay taxes. It also means it's a tax-deferred account, meaning you have not yet paid the tax on that money. So here's what's really interesting, and the article was talking about this, is that back when these plans were first created, we were all told that this was a really good thing for us, right? We were told you put the money in now, you get a tax break this year for it, and you don't have to pay the tax on that money until you take the money out, right? So this was told this is a really good thing to defer the tax. Why is it now, though, not such a good thing for folks?
Yeah, the reality is it's a short-term savings. We've talked about on other shows, we talked about the pain pleasure principle and how we do everything we can to avoid pain today versus seeking out something that might help us long-term. We talked about the fact that Americans spend like 6.5 billion hours a year to figure out how to save money on taxes or pay less taxes.
Yep.
And so really we're kind of short-sighted, in my opinion, because we're focused so much on trying to avoid the pain of taxes today that we forget that you said it really well, Kristen. You said you're qualified to pay tax at some point in time. And that's really what the pre-tax paradigm, if you will. You're just deferring the tax at some point in the future. We don't realize that when you have a traditional 401k or IRA or SEP, whatever type it is, you have a silent partner. That silent partner's name rhymes with Crunkle Sham, let's say, something to that effect.
Yes, good old Uncle Sam.
And the reality is, if you believe, like most people do, that I meet with at least, that tax rates are going to go up in the future. We could talk about the reasons why, the catastrophic disarray we find our country's balance sheet in. Jeremy's talked about on another show, going to usdebtclock.org just to see it for yourself.
It's terrifying.
The fact that there's a precedent for tax rates being much higher. I think over the last 100 years, the top tax brackets averaged about 61%. All reasons why we would expect tax rates to go higher. But even if they don't, let me just put it this way, even if they don't, the more money you have in those pre-tax accounts, the larger your what we call RMDs or required minimum distributions are going to be in the future. The larger those RMDs, the more tax you're going to pay on Social Security. The more tax you pay on Social Security, we call this a tax torpedo or tax snowball. The more tax you pay on Social Security, that turns into ordinary income, which means all of a sudden, hey, instead of hitting at 0% for my long-term capital gains and qualified dividends, those now hit at 15% or higher, depending on what your overall income is. So it all adds up to tens of thousands of dollars in additional taxes you pay long-term, all because of these qualified accounts. And it's a reason why, I said this on the show before, Ed Slott, who is kind of a mentor for a lot of folks when it comes to taxes, has said that the IRA has been dramatically downgraded. And it's really resulted where those types of accounts have turned into a growing, ticking tax time bomb.
Right. But here's I think the other side of that argument is a lot of folks have believed and were told, again, put this money in, it's tax deferred, you don't have to pay the tax on it later. And the reason why that should be a good thing is supposedly in retirement, my income will be lower. So what would you say to someone who has that mindset of, no, but my tax rate's going to be lower in retirement because my income will be lower? Is that really, though, what's happening these days?
Well, it's hard to predict what the tax rates will be because we can't predict the future. The theory of my income will be lower when I'm retired, that's possible. I mean, but that would require your standard of living going down, most likely, potentially. And so most people don't want that.
Right.
And so if you look at the way you pay your taxes, as Tim was kind of outlining, when you're actually retired, we can actually show you on a tax map where you could actually pay a 50% tax on a $1,000 distribution from your IRA, where if you were to do that, like while you're working, there's no way you could pay a 50% tax today. The highest tax bracket doesn't even go that high.
Right.
And so the bottom line is the way that taxes are calculated, it's a lot more complicated when you're drawing Social Security and when you have other types of income. And so we're going to talk about it more on this show, but it's important to have a diversified portfolio, not only diversified in the types of accounts, but also diversified in how they're taxed.
Yes, tax diversification of your assets. Right. Well, and I think that's the point, right? Even if you're not working anymore, that doesn't necessarily mean that your income may go down because of Social Security, if you have a pension, these other sources of income, RMDs, when you hit that age 73, right?
Well, and so unless you're a Hollywood actor, how many retirees have kids under 17? Not very many. So there goes a child tax credit. They work their whole lives to get their house paid off. What's the number one deduction people use when they itemize on a Schedule A?
It's the mortgage interest.
The mortgage interest, correct. So all those deductions and credits go away. So you think you're going to be in a lower tax bracket, but you're not. So
exactly.
You know, I guess I have a question quick for Jeremy. Do you know if Wheeler Dealer is still on the air on KRVN?
Actually, I don't know.
So there's a show on KRVN, for all my KRVN listener friends out there. You're going to appreciate this. It's called Wheeler Dealer.
Okay.
So, you know,
Wheeler Dealer.
Wheeler Dealer. So
Okay.
people call in, hello, Wheeler Dealer. And yeah, I'd like Amigos at 2472. And basically it's a way you can call in and get discounts and, you know, different kind of coupon type show. It's a lot of fun. It's on, I believe it was on KRVN 880. first thing Saturday morning, and I would just sit, like, this is how boring my apparent life was growing up. I just sit and listen to that. So I'm going to turn into Wheeler Dealer just for a second. I'm going to make a deal with Jeremy here.
Okay.
So here's the deal.
Oh, great.
Ready? So I am going to loan you $500,000 right now.
Okay.
And you don't have to pay me back for 30 years. There's not monthly payments, not annual payments, quarterly payments, and nothing. No principal, no interest, nothing due for 30 years. So here's $500,000. I write you a check today. Just give me the money back in 30 years. Do we have a deal?
Maybe.
Maybe? That's a great deal. Do you want to see the fine print?
I'd like to see the interest rate.
And that's in the fine print, Jeremy. And here's the problem. It's just a blank, okay? It's a fill in the blank because I can't tell you what the interest rate is. But I can let you know in 30 years.
That sounds fantastic.
Kristen, will you take the deal?
I would not, because
Nobody's going to take the deal.
Right.
I don't think my Wheeler Dealer hat kind of failed me today. Here's the reality. We've all already made that deal. All of our viewers out there, you've made that deal. If you own an IRA, a 401k, a 403b, a 457, a TSA, you've made that deal, except that your partner, the person that you've made that deal with, is in fact the IRS. It's Uncle Sam. It's the government. They're going to get that money eventually. They get a vote every single year on how much they're going to take of your hard-earned money, where you took all the risk, you paid all the expenses, you did all of the work in order to get that money to grow, and now they get to decide at some point in the future to save themselves how much they're going to take. Now's the time to take action to minimize the chunk they're going to take so you keep more in your pocket. You can call the number on the screen right there, get your complimentary written financial plan, and we're going to teach you how to minimize the amount they take, maximize the amount you keep.
Wonderful. Tim, Jeremy, I'm excited to continue this conversation and really go through solutions for folks throughout the rest of today's show. But if you want to get started and claim your complimentary written financial plan, we encourage you to pick up the phone and call that number that you see on the bottom of your screen, 866-256-7778. Or you're also welcome to pull out your smartphone, and if you open up that camera app, you can point, click, and scan the QR code that you see there down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Stonebridge Wealth Systems will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. When we come back, we're going to be discussing some solutions for how you navigate this problem with your qualified accounts right after this.
As Americans, we strive for better. From a better house to a better career to a better life for our children and grandchildren. Better has become the American way. When it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? Does it mean more income, a flexible lifestyle, better solutions? A better retirement begins with a financial plan. To get your complimentary written financial plan, call the number you see here. You only retire once. This is your opportunity to plan for better.
You know, if you think about the average American consumer, we don't talk about financial topics very often. And so we spend a lot of time at Stonebridge doing educational seminars and different things that are free of charge. If you're not educated in a topic, how do you make educated decisions? When you're working with a client, you're sitting down with them, they're a little stressed out, but after you go through the process and you really take time to educate them on not only what we're doing for them, but why we're doing it, that really gives them peace of mind, and you can see the weight just kind of drops. And when they leave, I hear all the time,
I really should have done this years ago. But sometimes there's a fear that somebody might try to sell us something. If the things that I can provide, if you don't want, don't need, or can't use those, I've got some good news for you. We're not going to sell them to you. We are fulfilling our fiduciary duty of putting their interests ahead of our own.
Welcome back, Nebraska. You're watching the Retirement Compass, where today we are discussing the problem of qualified plans, meaning the bulk of Americans have amassed the majority of their wealth in tax-deferred accounts. Maybe it's a workplace retirement plan you have, something like a 401k, maybe it's a traditional IRA. The problem is it presents a ticking tax time bomb and has a threat of increasing your potential tax bill in retirement. So Tim and Jeremy, we need to talk about some solutions for how to navigate this problem. So let's start there. I mean, how do you help folks navigate these ticking tax time bombs?
Well, the easy one, and most employers offer this now, with the Secure Act 2.0, the Congress made it easier to make Roth contributions into a 401k and also matching contributions.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest problems. If you were to do it before, you might make a Roth contribution, but you wouldn't get the match from your employer, or the match would go into the traditional 401k side.
And so not all employers have switched over, but it's becoming more common
It's
now.
becoming more common. Yes, absolutely.
So that's the first thing, is you can have a different place to put the money, right? But what would you say to someone who's going, but wait a second, if I do that, if I take the Roth 401k option, that means I'm going to lose my tax deduction this year. And what if they don't want to do that? What do you say to someone who's grappling with that decision?
I go back to what we said at the end of the last segment. I mean, the reality is it's kind of like that catch-22. It's pay now or pay later. Sometimes you give the analogy that, I love shopping at Scheels. I'm a big fan of that store. They've got everything. And so imagine that, I went into Scheels and decided I'm, shopping for fishing gear or something like that. Hunting, fishing, they've got a wide selection. And lo and behold, I walk in and they say, hey, this month only 20% off everything in the fishing, department. And I'm like, well, I plan on going fishing next month. So maybe I don't need this gear today. I'm going to need it a month from now. I don't need it today. I'll just wait a month and then I'll get it then. My two choices, it's really this simple. It seems absurd, but I can either pay 80% of the bill today, because the 20% off this month only, or I can wait a month until I need it and pay 100%.
Right.
That's really what we're talking about here with taxes. They're on sale right now. So we're going to pay while they're on sale, or we're going to wait until we absolutely need that money down the road and pay at potentially stratospherically higher rates.
And define why you're saying taxes are on sale, because all three of us at this desk understand why. But for someone this is a news flash, why is it that taxes are on sale right now?
It's one of the lowest tax regimes we've seen in our lifetime. So, and probably, I would argue, the lowest taxes that anyone watching this show, the three of us on camera here, the lowest we'll see during our lifetimes. So the example I like to give is, this election year, so a lot of people are thinking about political things. Well, there was a politician from years ago who, before he was a politician, he was an actor, okay? And his name, you probably know.
Ronald Reagan.
Correct.
Yes.
So Ronald Reagan, when he was an actor, he would only do 2 films a year. Why is that? Well, he got paid $100,000 per film. And back in the 40s and 50s, the top tax bracket started at about $200,000, and it was over 90%. It was 94%. It was the highest we've seen. And Ronald Reagan said, I refuse to work for 6 cents on the dollar, okay? And the reality is he didn't get to keep that 6 cents because he lived in what state? California.
Yep.
Is California a high or low tax state?
Very high.
So did he keep the 6 cents? No. Now, some people would say, well, yeah, of course he didn't. It went to Nancy. But I don't think him and Nancy were married at that point.
Right.
But obviously the point of the story, not pun intended, is there is a precedent for much higher rates. And if I look at where the things are headed as far as the spending and things like Medicare and Social Security and the shortfalls we have there, that's why I'm saying that rates are on sale.
Right. Well, continuing our conversation of potential solutions for folks, I know one of the strategies that a lot of folks might be familiar with are Roth conversions. And I know that this is something that you are able to do for a lot of your clients. So can you shed some light on what a Roth conversion is and why it potentially can be such a beneficial strategy? Yeah,
it's a really great strategy. We do use it a lot right now. And as Tim mentioned, taxes are on sale. We talked about that briefly. But if you think about what we're basically doing is moving money that we're going to pay tax on in the future at a reduced tax rate today, a known rate today, and we're putting it into a Roth IRA that we will be able to invest and withdraw money from down the, I guess in the future, tax-free. And so the idea of that is just basically repositioning money, repositioning assets, and doing that in a low tax environment. And the nice thing is we have a low tax environment. We have it this year and we have it next year, but in 2026 that changes. And so it may or may not make sense to do it in 2026. We don't know. But the idea is we need to put a plan together and then start implementing that plan. And the sooner the better.
Now, you mentioned some key dates of 2026, the beginning of 2026. Let's talk about why this is such a time-sensitive issue for folks to be looking at Roth conversions right now. What is potentially going to happen at that point in time?
Yeah, I mean, in 2026, if Congress does nothing, so their specialty, the rates will just go back to where they were, right? So in other words, they'll revert to
code, right.
The tax code will revert. So two things are going to happen. I think this is really critical for our viewers to understand. It's not just the rates. So one is the rate. So 12 goes back to 15, 22 to 25, 24 to 28, and so forth. The other thing is the brackets compress. The main increase we'll see will be from the rates going up. But if you were to be at the top of the 22% bracket today, you might think, oh, well, 22 is going to 25, so I'll be in the 25% bracket in 2026 and beyond. That's not true. Because of that compression, you'd actually be in the 28% bracket. So you'll see about a 6% jump in your marginal effective rate. So the reality is, that's why this time sensitive, we talk about a window of opportunity, is so critical.
Right.
So what we're doing for folks who are coming in, we got a lot of folks that are they're watching the show, they're calling and they're saying, hey, look, I'm hearing your message on taxes, and Tim, I'm with you, right? It makes sense. That's one of my main concerns. We see that all the time with in our intake form. What are your top 3 concerns? Tax efficiency. Which account do I take money out of first? So what we're going to do is we're going to run a report called the Total Tax Burden Report. And what that is it's a report that will evaluate the total amount of taxes you might pay on your retirement accounts, like IRAs and 401ks. What it does is allow you to clearly weigh the pros and cons of paying taxes now versus paying them later, deferring them to some point in the future. But at the end of the day, what that means is you can stop wondering of whether you're doing the right thing, whether or not you're taking the right steps, taking the right action. And you will know, when you leave our office, you'll know that you have a plan to minimize the amount that'll go to the IRS, maximize the amount that's going to stay in your pocket for your hard-earned money, for your family to use. And again, it's complimentary. Just give us a call at the number on the screen now, and we'll run this total tax burden report for you when you come in.
Wonderful. Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. Again, that number to call is there on the bottom of your screen to claim your complimentary written financial plan. And as Tim just spelled out for you, you're also going to be able to receive that total tax burden report. Such valuable information to be able to see what your potential tax bill could be in retirement and how you can go about mitigating that and reducing that even now. That number to call is 866-256-7778. Or again, you're also welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. When we come back, could a Roth conversion strategy be right for you? I'm going to put Tim and Jeremy on the spot, and answering that question, stay with us.
I own a motel I was able to buy out of college. When I actually ended up buying the motel, I was leaving. I had just passed the life and health license, and I was going to sell Medicare supplements and long-term care. I told the owner of the motel that, hey, I'm going to be leaving. I was giving him a 6 months heads up that, hey, I'll train whoever you want to bring in. He said, I'd actually rather sell you the motel than bring in a new manager, because he never showed up. So he didn't have to do anything. It was kind of like an ATM for him. And so, when you own your own business, there's a lot of people that got to be paid. There's marketing that has to be done. There's a lot of different dynamics that go into running a motel. It actually taught me to think outside the box a little bit. And so I started looking around, what are other things I can do? Because I really liked helping people. I liked solving problems for them. And there's a big difference between selling something and actually finding solutions to problems. When you're thinking about personal finance and managing somebody's retirement for them, they've worked for 40 years saving all this money, and now they're retiring. They're turning this over to you to take and run with it. So it's a big deal. I think we can always do stuff better. There's always room for improvement. And so I want to read as much as I can. I want to study as much as I can so that I can do a better job for my clients, which they're counting on me to get the job done for them.
Welcome back to the Retirement Compass. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both Tim Kulhanek and Jeremy Gove from Stonebridge Wealth Systems. We've been talking today all about the reality of navigating the challenge that your tax-deferred accounts pose for you and your security in retirement, and that is that there is so much tax waiting to be paid. Uncle Sam cannot wait to get his hands in this. We've talked about some of the solutions that you're able to enact for folks. We've been spending a lot of time talking about Roth conversions, and we know it's very important to give a balanced discussion on this show. I'm curious for those that are watching, if they're trying to decide, okay, could a Roth conversion strategy be right for me? I want to ask you guys, who is often a good candidate for that strategy, and also who might not be a good candidate to enact that strategy?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kristen. And so basically, anybody that's wanting to reduce taxes in the future, they're a good candidate, right? I mean, so let's just kind of make that really simple. And then if for people that are are not a good candidate, for people that are not a good candidate, are people that may be leaving money to charity, or they may be doing something like that. Charities obviously don't pay tax, so I would rather give them money that hasn't had any taxes paid on and give that to them. So that would be a good example of somebody that it may or may not make sense for.
Right. Okay. And that's important to know, right? Because it's not a one size fits all, but it could potentially be beneficial for a lot of folks who are watching today.
Right.
Yep.
And I know you have an analogy, you've talked about this on previous shows, the bucket analogy. Did you want to hit on that to kind of illustrate and wrap up our conversation today?
Sure, yeah. So we put together a graphic that we can pull up here for you. And really the idea of this is to understand, to give a visual of how this works. So ultimately, the first step when you're planning for retirement is to make sure that you're actually saving. So it's critical that you hear the right message here. We're not saying don't put money in your 401k, but do it the right way. So take advantage of the company match. That's going to go into the tax deferred bucket. So that's the middle bucket. That's your 401ks, your IRAs, your 403bs. The 401k, get the free money. Now, like Jeremy said, if we can put that in the Roth 401k, that's excellent. But if your company doesn't yet offer that, still get that free money. The bucket on the left-hand side, that's the taxable bucket. You need to make sure you have an emergency fund. The water heater goes out, the car needs new tires, things come up, life's consistent inconsistencies. That bucket has to be filled as well. Step number 3 is to reallocate every other dollar amount that you have coming in for savings to the right. So shift it to the tax-free bucket. So that's going to be the bucket on the right. That's going to be Roth conversions, what we've talked about today. Roth 401k, Roth IRA, the life insurance retirement plan, which we're going to talk about on another show, also called a LIRP. All of those are excellent ways to be able to save for tax-free dollars in the future. And at the end of the day, I'll put it like this. It comes down to, do you want to pay tax on the seed or the harvest? You know, we use this analogy all the time. But again, you're going to do all the work. You know, you're taking all the risk. You're paying all the expenses. You're going to work every single day to put this plan together to generate this income. Why shouldn't you be the one that benefits the most from it versus postponing those taxes to some point in the future, given a government who has a vote every single year on how much they're going to take, and you have no control over that. You do have control over the planning you do leading up to the point of needing the money. That's what we invite you to do today. Give us a call number on the screen. Get that complimentary written financial plan. As part of that, of course, is going to be a tax analysis to show how much money you can keep. And if a Roth conversion, one of the strategies we've talked about today, makes sense for you, we'll show you that as well.
Wonderful. Tim, Jeremy, thank you so much. Such an informative show as always. And we thank you for joining us today as well. That number to call is 866-256-7778, or you're welcome to scan that QR code to schedule your complimentary written financial plan with the team of Stonebridge Wealth Systems. And as we've talked about today, you're also going to be able to walk away with your total tax burden report. We appreciate you being here. Be safe, be happy, be blessed. We look forward to being back with you next time here on the Retirement Compass.